Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending today's webinar, How to Achieve More Success Selling Products to Retailers Worldwide. My name is Jason Stegent. I'll be your moderator for today's session, brought to you by CBX Software. Before we get into the meat of the discussion, just a few notes so everybody can make the best use of their time today. All in, we should be about 40 minutes, including a Q&A towards the end. Speaking of, if you have any questions, if you look at your interface, you'll see a Q&A box. Simply type in your questions, click submit. We'll get to as many of your questions as we can at the end of today's presentations. We've got two great speakers. They'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. We're recording today's session. It'll be available on demand within the next 24 to 48 hours, so be on the lookout from us on how to access the on-demand version. If you look along the bottom of your screen, you'll see some icons that enable you to do a number of different things, share it socially, email out of the platform, get any help you need if you're experiencing something that needs to be troubleshooted, etc. But I want you to focus on the one that looks like a paperclip icon. Within it, that's our resource center. CBX is hosting a few pieces of content available for download. I think you'll get a lot of value out of it. There's no dial-in option for today. You're going to hear it through your PC speakers, through your mobile device. Just make sure that the sound quality is good on whatever device you're using. Make sure that the volume is up. If it's not loud enough for you, we always recommend headphones. So before we get into this session, I did want to briefly introduce today's presenters and then let them tell you a little bit more about themselves. We've got Juli Lassow. She's going to start. We also have Eric Linksweiler from CBX. Juli, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your experience to present on today's topic?
Oh, thanks so much, Jason. And thank you, everyone, for making time to be here today. I'm thrilled to have this conversation with Eric and the team. So I grew up in the world of retail. I spent more than 20 years working in and supporting mass and specialty retailers throughout the U.S. and around the world. I love working with retailers and their supplier partners to build amazing own brand products. I've been fortunate to do that with some of the largest retailers in the U.S., and we work to expand partnerships, build stronger teams. I have a lot of passion around building sustainable solutions, as well as finding ways to accelerate growth in a way that minimizes risk. It's been an exciting year and a half, to say the least. Retail is always changing, but that pace of change accelerated quite significantly. And I think business today looks very, very different than it was even a handful of years ago. And excited to talk more with the team today about what that looks and feels like, and hopefully give you some insights on how growing your business in the coming seasons can be more productive. And that's me. Thanks so much, Jason.
Great. Thanks, Juli. Great intro. Eric, how about a little bit about yourself for today's attendees?
Yeah, for sure. Juli, great to be back online with you. This is awesome. We've done some other events in the past, and stoked to be here with you again today. So I think my experience is best summarized by just mentioning a few of the retailers and brands that I've worked with: REI, PetSmart, Dollar General, Safeway, Petco, Ace Hardware, Tractor Supply Company. I've been primarily responsible for delivering enterprise SaaS solutions aimed at retail supply chain optimization, generally focused on communications, both between the retailer and their suppliers, vendors, extended partners, merchandising operations, sourcing, logistics, operations across e-commerce, procurement, and compliance. And I look forward to just exploring some of these topics with you guys today over the next 20, 30 minutes. So thanks for having me.
Fantastic. I think you guys are pretty qualified for this. So excited to dive into it. So Juli, I want to start with you. As we look at how retailers are collaborating with their suppliers and how they're finding new suppliers and innovative store brands, can you offer your perspective on that currently?
Well, I think one of the biggest changes that we've seen in the last year and a half is losing that opportunity to work in person and face to face. So whether that was walking the shows or having the appointments to get introduced to those new lines and partners. So with my clients, what we've had to do is get more creative, certainly doing a fair amount of search online, but leveraging marketplaces. And I'm thrilled that Eric's here to talk as an expert in this space as well. But we've found some more tech-facing solutions to sort of augment the fact that we aren't able to have that analog in-person conversation.
Right. So
I might just
go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I might just tag on to that a little bit. I mean, specifically around consumer demand in with relation to what we've seen over the last 18 months with the pandemic. What I hear from my retail customers and what you see in the economy, consumer demand is high. Okay. I mean,
Hmm.
people are buying stuff, but what they want to buy are unique products that
Hmm.
represent current trends, but also offer a sense of individuality. So to Julie's point, I mean, you've got to as a retailer or a brand, you've got to be engaging dynamically with your suppliers, with your supply chain, with your manufacturing partners, um, on an urgent basis, if you will, to continue to
Right.
meet high consumer demand and deliver these unique products. So um, I like to, we hear a lot about, kind of the negativity or the doom and gloom around what we've been faced with here over the last several months. But I like to put a positive
Hmm.
spin on it. I think retail and particularly from a consumership perspective is actually quite positive from what I hear and see.
That was actually, something I was going to ask Julie. I guess you're seeing the same thing on your end in terms of that retail consumer demand.
Oh, absolutely. I think the younger generations, especially, are looking for products that are more personalized to them, but also connect from more of a values basis. The rise of conscious consumerism, uh, people are becoming much more selective about what they choose to buy. They're buying a lot less. So the retailers and the supplier partners that are putting together products that more closely speak to that value, so whether that's more sustainable value, more human-led resources in developing those products, how the products are transported, what they show from a packaging perspective. The retailers are putting more thought into how that product is developed, and the supplier partners that can help make those products more personal and come together with more of a commitment are ones that are seeing a lot of success.
So as we shift to sourcing, what are some of the recent changes that you guys are seeing in the retail sourcing process? Julie, Eric, y'all want to start? Whichever one of you wants to start, tackle that first.
Well, I
Sure.
touched on the first one. Yeah, I touched on the first one
Happy.
just a moment ago, that ability to not meet in person anymore has been really challenging. But I'd say, followed secondarily by the fact that while retail has always been changing, the sense of urgency and emergency that retailers and their supply partners have having to navigate recently has made it so challenging when you have to focus on the urgent to then take a step back and focus on the important. So that strategic, that relationship building, and even that creative space where you are building and co-creating something new. The retail partners that I've worked with, we really have to coach and prioritize making time and space to do that work, where that used to naturally occur more in person. So I think being more purposeful with setting aside some of the fires of the day and thinking about how I can build out the business in the coming months and years is also incredibly important.
Eric, you were going to chime in on your end.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Eric.
yeah, no problem, Joel. So I think thinking long term to Julie's point is definitely a trend, and putting in technology advances and embarking on a digital transformation where possible to look to the longer term is certainly a topic of discussion around sourcing. Um, Additionally, though, on the flip side, not to contradict myself, but on the flip side of it is um, to meet to meet the unique requirements to Julie's point that consumers are seeking, you also need to have a very dynamic and much faster communication stream between the product development folks and their manufacturing or supply partners. So what I see is people are looking for tools, techniques, processes to compress the supply chain collaboration time, and reduce the number of physical touches, physical sample exchanges, as an example, to be able to bring the products to market faster. You're also finding that kind of gone are the days, I believe, and what I see, where the sourcing teams are constantly going back to their same partners. They're actually being
Mhm.
forced by the merchants, by the category managers, to branch out and find new suppliers, find new geos, find lower cost but same quality, find opportunities for partners that explicitly express a desire to be more sustainable, more transparent. So sourcing is having to work a little bit harder, I think, than they used to. Let's just put it that way.
Well, hey, you talk about finding new partners, Eric. Let's stay with you. So how are today's retailers collaborating and building those new vendor relationships? Why don't you add some color there?
Yeah, it's difficult, and it's always been a challenge. But there's no shortage of suppliers and their desire to engage in new relationships with retailers. That's always been there. But to my previous point, the buyers, the retailers, they kind of, they sort of focused on their trusted and true. They kind of always, they would go back to the folks that they've done business with in the past. I see that changing now. For the reason I said before, I see them using different tools or desiring to find different tools, to cast a broader net, if you will, and find new supply. Primarily, again, around geo, cost, politics, socialism, social aspects, and so forth.
Julie, how about you? What are your thoughts on it?
No, I would agree with Eric. Either by choice or not, retailers are having to find new partners. Some of the partners that have been their first choice for season upon season might not be able to deliver as quickly or as reliably, or perhaps might not even be in business anymore. The amount of factories that have completely shifted their position or their ability to ship at all has been absolutely stunning in the last year and a half. So yes, I would say that there's been a lot of creative ways that teams are looking out to find new partners. And it's exciting that some shows are starting to come back and those introductions are starting to happen again. But I think if we've learned anything in the last handful of months, it's you need to build an incredible amount of resiliency into your supply chain. And that means going deeper and building a broader bench in some cases, especially as consumer needs have shifted and the way that we're showing up and delivering products to the consumers has increasingly needed to become more nimble, more flexible. There's new expectations around what suppliers need to bring to be able to bring their A game and support retailers in bringing their goods to market.
Right. So let's focus a little bit on differentiation and long-term retailer strategy. So how is differentiating through store brands, how is that critical to many retailer strategies today?
I touched on it just at the top of the conversation, but happy to dig in a little further here. As a retailer, when you're building out your own store brand, your own brand, you are able to make so much use of the data that's available to you to build the perfect product. So whether that's fully internally designed from a product perspective, like I said, from a packaging perspective, or even a distribution method, you own so much more of that. And having that insight to connect to the target consumer that you have today and that you want to continue to grow a relationship with puts you in a better position than anyone to design and develop the perfect product. And then it also gives you a really great punch list when you're looking for the right partners to work with to make these products. You know exactly what that's going to need to look and feel like. And from a sourcing perspective, the amount of sophistication that you can build into going with those partners deeper into their supply chain, understanding where their raw materials are coming from, what the relationships they have are with their tier 1 and tier 2 partners is incredibly important in making that very genuine connection with that consumer. And we've seen with the rise of direct-to-consumer businesses as well as store brands that this type of connectivity resonates in an amazingly impactful way with more conscientious consumers.
Eric?
Yeah, I might just bring because of where I'm coming from, maybe a technology perspective to this as well, to piggyback on what Julie was saying, that the retailers have a wealth of data available to them and they're able to make better decisions and also ask more, I guess, of their suppliers. As we're seeing, finally starting to see technology such as actual wear testing and the involvement of a very broad consumer sharing community that will actually take on product and then feed back to the retailer in real or near real time actually how a particular garment or a pair of shoes or boots or headwear is actually performing out in the real world, and then moving that back into the retailer, and then the retailer is able to make adjustments almost on the fly with their supply base. You're seeing that really start to hit the mainstream now. Gosh, 3D technology is really, is beginning to take shape. A lot of people talked about 3D modeling, 3D sampling, 3D virtual sampling over the years, and not really executed on it. But what I'm seeing from the technology perspective is as retailers now are beginning to embrace it, at least the leading retailers and the leading brands. I mean, the global iconic brands, the Lulus, the Nikes, etc. I mean, they're really embracing this technology and using that data to feed back into their suppliers, their supply chain, etc., and really develop a real tight working relationship that delivers really cool products to their consumers.
Great. So Eric, let's stay with you on this next question that I have. What is the fastest way, in your opinion, and obviously we want Julie's perspective as well, what's the fastest way to get products noticed from the largest retailers? You just mentioned some really large brands, so why don't you shed some light on that?
Yeah, well, I can tell you what I can tell you what doesn't work, right? What doesn't work in getting noticed is blind emails, cold calling retailers with requests to view your digital catalog that you've sent in a link in another email, or a link to a shared site. I mean, suppliers, they're salespeople, right? they are working really hard to get in front of retailers with these traditional methods, and they're just not working. I mean, the junk boxes fill up, these emails are not read. Retailers are highly risk averse. With all my talk on my previous statement about how they're embracing technology, at the same time, they take a long time to decide if they're going to change the way they're doing stuff. They are risk averse. They want to do business with people that they trust, or that people that they have seen other folks utilize, and thus they gain ancillary trust, if you will. So, we're working with several large retailers in developing virtual showrooming, virtual factory audit, virtual factory tour, virtual sampling, etc., on various different platforms, and I'm seeing that beginning to be adopted more often. And the suppliers that are engaging on these types of platforms are seeing that they're getting their products noticed more quickly.
Julie, what are your thoughts on that? Anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Building on what Eric shared, I think the fastest way to build a partnership with a retailer is to credential yourself. So whether it's showing that you've worked with a partner that's of interest, or a peer in the marketplace that is of interest to that retailer. But I think even bigger than that is thinking about what is the assortment that you're bringing to the table. So the assortment that shows that you understand who that retailer's target consumer is, that you understand where that retailer wants to go, being able to demonstrate to them that you've got the abilities to build an assortment that will bring that to life for them. What's solving their problems? What's getting their consumers so excited about spending their hard-earned dollars these days, when that's not something that's as common when you look at consumerism across the board. So other ways to credential yourself, certainly beyond the technology space, are less reliable. When you kind of think of old schools, like who you know, maybe you have an influencer, you have a broker calling to get you in. Those ways worked, but there's just less return on investment for that type of spend these days, in my experience. And so, to Eric's point, if you've got a way to get into a virtual showroom and credential yourself that way, it's a much better bet in the longer term.
And Eric, on your previous statement, you hit on it briefly, digital product catalogs. Why are more retailers turning to those right now?
Well, time and money. I mean, let's just cut to the quick here, right? We're currently working with arguably, I think, one of the world's largest home furnishings, home decor retailers. And they have just come to the realization that, look, we have got to cut down on the number of in-person buy trips, the amount of samples that we are paying air freight on to get our hands on them, and figure out a means to see more product faster with less actual hard dollars attached to it. I mean, that's the reality. They're just not walking, pandemic aside. I think this has been coming for a while, but you see that trade fair traffic is down even prior to the pandemic. Physical buy trips, gone are the days of sending 10, 20, 30 people on a 2 or 3 week trip throughout Asia to visit showrooms in person. I mean, it just isn't happening any longer. And we as a technology community probably need to address that and help these retailers address that with different digital tools that work.
Julie?
I completely agree. Time and money would be the top reasons why the more tech-based digital solution is the way of the future. And gosh, Eric, I was tired just hearing you describe what the 2 to 3 week trips across Asia looked and felt like in the showrooms. But the build I'd offer is that you being able to get more quickly aligned on what the strategy is and the growth priorities in those first rounds of development samples also frees up time for that creative space where you can find what one of my clients likes to call the golden nuggets. So the unexpected connections, the unexpected builds, and ways to put together an assortment in a way that you weren't expecting. It frees up some capacity for that type of work as well, which I think is incredibly important. And when you're at day 22 of a long trip, you've burned out of that creative capacity to go beyond the obvious and go beyond the straightforward and find something that's truly inspirational. So I like the idea of creating some straightforward approaches, some efficiency, dare I say it, in some of that earlier design process in order to free up some space to create some joy and wonder.
Yeah, joy and wonder, and also you see, particularly in the largest retailers and the hypermarkets, etc., they're also branching into new categories for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think about a large general discounter, general merchandiser here in the U.S. as an example that really had no significant category play in health and beauty for forever, and suddenly they find themselves being forced to get into this category to be not only to be competitive, but to take advantage of an opportunity, right? And it's nothing that they had done in the past. So, gosh, if you're thinking about doing it physical or in person and you've never done it in the past, that could get expensive pretty quickly. So, if you've got an opportunity to shop or to seek these suppliers for these new categories these emerging categories for yourself, kind of on the front end, then it helps you on the back end, right?
So obviously a lot of people are here today to understand best practices. They want to know how to showcase their product offerings is the next big thing for store brand innovation. So a few questions along those lines. What are retailers looking for? And then how should these folks, what should they do to catch the eye of the retail buyer? How best to collaborate with retailers? What are your thoughts on best practices for these folks to achieve those things?
For me, it comes down to doing your homework on the consumer and the products to start. Why you, why your product, why are you a partner, not just for this season, but going forward. And I think also making the most of the technology solution that's available. The tools that are out there are changing and being adapted and updated, in real time. And so for the supplier partners that are investing and understanding what the technology can do and how to customize the experience for the retailer to the best of their ability, they're demonstrating that they both have a product mindset, but also this nimbleness and flexibility built into their DNA so that they'll be stronger partners when those inevitable challenges of retail come up and the curveballs come, that they're committed to building a solution that's flexible and that's going to deliver results. So I would say both do your homework on the product and the retailer, as well as the technology that you're using. Understanding that retailers are learning this on the fly and using new systems as well, and will appreciate some reverse mentoring and support. And hey, this is the best way we can use this tool, or this is a partner I've worked with in this way, and maybe we can build this into the process, and this is why it could work well for you.
Eric, any thoughts to piggyback off of what Julie said?
Yeah, I love doing these with Julie because she gives me words that like pops things into my mind. So Julie says, do your homework. I 100% agree. You know, you can't, as a supplier, you can't just show up. You can't just show up and show out, right? Here's my cup. But rather, you need to bring a plan. Bring a plan to the retailer. Understand the retailer's customer. Explain why this particular cup talks to their customer. Understand why the cost of your cup aligns with what their customer is willing to pay, and give them what's next. After I deliver the cup, then we're going to build on that theme and we're going to deliver the next item. Okay, so bring in. Now now instead of just showing up and showing out, you're actually engaging with the retailer in a true partnership, a collaborative partnership way. The other thing that I am hearing a lot of, it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's out there. The boardroom discussion for retailers today is around sustainability. It's around ESG initiatives, environmental, social governance initiatives. It's around transparency. So bring to your retail customer as a supplier, bring to them what you are doing to fulfill or to help them meet their strategies around ESG. So those would be the two things. Do your homework and bring to them your plan for meeting their sustainability or transparency initiatives.
Awesome. And we're going to stick with you because we want to show a slide, Eric, that you have that you're going to cover for us briefly. We're going to get that up here. And I think that this slide speaks to a number of things, and obviously you're going to talk on it. So let me tee this up, Eric. How can suppliers drive business value with a more agile, collaborative, and efficient way to show off their latest products to retailers? Speak to that a little bit, and I think this slide does a good job of it as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I touched on it a little while ago, and I think there's two avenues here. First of all, you have to come to grips as a supplier. You've got to come to grips with the fact that you can send out 99 emails, and you'll have 99 emails that never get read, and you also have to figure out a way to demonstrate your trustworthiness. Okay. So it's difficult to do that using the tried and true and old methods because the retailers aren't getting out to you and seeing you face to face. So what's your fallback plan? So there are several platforms similar to the Trade Beyond platform that are out in the market. A lot of suppliers think that they can just post product inside of open marketplaces. But that by itself doesn't work because of the reasons I just said. You have to be able to collaborate, speak back and forth with a retailer in near real time. This Trade Beyond platform that that we've discovered does that, allows you to do that, collaborate, with video, with text, with voice, and share your collection and kind of do that, demonstrate that you've done your homework, as we just talked about. Also, this particular platform, the Trade Beyond platform, is nice. It helps with your trustworthiness. This organization works with third parties to verify that a supplier has capacity, has a business license, has certificates of insurance, actually has the ability to deliver in bulk in container loads that a retailer in the tier one or a tier one brand need. So I think begin to explore technology platforms, the Trade Beyond platform is a good one. Begin to explore how these can help you do your homework and meet, tick the box on your trustworthiness.
Right. That's a good wrap to the presentation, because we've got a number of questions that came in from the audience that we're going to get into. Did want to remind everybody that we've recorded today's session. We've had a great turnout, a lot of questions coming in from the audience. We're excited to tackle those. For the sake of time, we'll probably hit 3 or 4. If Eric or Julie aren't able to get to your questions, they'll absolutely reach out to you directly offline and have a one-on-one with you. But it's not too late to ask any questions, so type them in, click submit. We're going to get to as many of them as we can. But again, be on the lookout for the on-demand version within the next 24, 48 hours. I've also seen we've already had a lot of downloads from those 2 pieces of content that CBX is hosting, which is nice to see. As long as you're in this environment, you can download that content. I think you'll find them really supportive as to what Eric and Julie spoke about today, and it'll allow you to learn more about CBX and the Trade Beyond solution. But I do want to get into some of these questions. We've got 3 that we're going to tackle right off the bat. If we have more time than that, we'll hit additional questions up. But this first one, Eric, is for you. You ended, you're going to start the Q&A. It's from Timothy. Timothy wants to know, Eric, how do I get started with Trade Beyond, and what is the cost of Trade Beyond? Pretty straightforward.
Well, that's an easy one, actually. Trade Beyond is a mobile app and a website. So you can go to tradebeyond.com. You can create an account right online, and immediately with a free trial, begin uploading catalogs, begin uploading products, and begin messaging retailers. You could go to from your mobile device, you can go to the Apple App Store, you can go to the Google Play Store, download it right to your mobile, and activate an account, free trial account. So no cost to get started, and opportunities abound. Simple. Julie, we've got one from you. This is from Tony. Tony wants to know, given your knowledge of the retail world, Julie, do you think that most are willing to adapt to this new digital world? And what advantages, because I know you spoke about this, Julie, what advantages do digital showrooms have over traditional sourcing methods, in your opinion?
Oh, Tony, you packed a lot into that. I would say that there's changes that we've been through in the last 18 months, but have been accelerating trends in the industry that we've seen prior to that. So I do think digital showrooms are here to stay. To the points that we talked about over the last 15, 20 minutes here, it's speed and efficiency and cost savings. We need to be thoughtful about the resources that we're spending so that we can spend energy finding ways to do business in new ways and connecting with consumers in new ways. And I don't see that changing. So I do think digital showrooms will definitely be part of the approach going forward. So I would encourage you to think about, how are you making the most of that platform to credential yourself, to get yourself seen? But then beyond just getting the basics out there, how are you then able to use those platforms to demonstrate to retailers that you are able to customize and help them solve what they want to for their target consumers? Right. Did I miss any parts of that question?
No, you didn't. You nailed it.
Well, there was a lot to unpack.
I couldn't have remembered that. It was 3 questions in one. I thought you nailed it. Thanks for that. We're going back to you, Eric. We've got a question from Ming. Ming said, I posted products on Alibaba with limited results. What makes Trade Beyond different from Alibaba? Yeah, well, no disrespect to Alibaba, one of the most successful, popular, largest organizations and marketplaces in the world. But the fact is, tier 1 brands, tier 1 retailers do not shop and buy from Alibaba. They can't. First of all, they're not sure that the source is legitimate, and certainly the source, very rarely, I have yet to see one, the source does not have the ability to deliver in bulk and to deliver exclusivity and private label that is required for tier 1 retailers to meet their goals. So, I mean, that's number one. It's a marketplace, but it doesn't have the collaboration tools necessary
for the retailer and the supplier to work back and forth and develop a unique collection to bring to the consumers. You need more than a marketplace. You need a platform that has workflow and has communication capability to meet the needs that retailers want for developing unique line plans. I mean, that would be my simplest answer.
Simple as best sometimes. I think it was a great answer. That's all the questions we're going to take. We did have obviously a lot more. Like I mentioned, Eric, Julie will reach out to you directly. I did want to end with something, and Eric and Julie, y'all can offer your perspective as we look at the title of today's webinar, How to Achieve More Success Selling Products to Retailers Worldwide. Julie, I'll start with you. I mean, can you summarize just some thoughts in general, just to kind of put a bow on today's session? Then Eric, I'll get some feedback from you as well.
I think for me, the themes that I run across the most in supporting my clients are the suppliers that are the strongest are the ones that can solve the immediate urgencies and emergencies of today. So they've got the blocking and tackling done. They're great problem solvers, but they also are keeping space for creating the vision for the future. So bringing those brands forward, solutions forward, creativity, and they're using different resources than they have in the past to bring that to light.
How about you, Eric?
Yeah, I'm just going to keep it to a few words. Innovate, bring something creative to market, have a plan, and do your homework. I really believe it of all that we've said over the 25 minutes, I think it kind of boils down to that.
Right. Well, that's going to do it for today. We appreciate everybody attending. Had a great audience, a lot of questions, a lot of interaction, which is always great. Julie and Eric, I thought you did a fantastic job, and hopefully we can do this again soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.